Hey everyone, my name's Andy. My channel's Finding Value. If you like looking for undervalued investment opportunities, click subscribe. I can put some out there for you. Lots of financial education on the channel. Today we're going to go over to uranium. We're going to do some technical analysis. It is one of my favorite sectors. We had a down market today. So let's see how that impacted some of the charts, or even if it did impact some of the charts. So let's jump in and take a look. Here's uranium. So is anything broken? Trend still in place? Any breakouts? What's going on? And breakouts could be upside, downside, doesn't matter. This is financial education only, guys. I can't be giving you guys advice, and it's not advice. You guys are going to have to do your own due diligence, figure out what fits in your strategy. It's all up to you. And remember, I do not want to be responsible for your losses, only for your gains. Okay. URNM, North Shore Global Uranium Mining. So when I look at this chart, I'm still seeing strength. We're coming on up. Now, keep in mind, we have pulled quite a bit up here. And we haven't pulled back too much. We've had a couple of zigzags. We're moving on up. We do have a little bit of a down day. Now, where could this go if it were to pull back? It could pull back to this trend line here and retest it. It very well could. Or maybe not. Maybe we just keep surging higher. We are in an undervalued sector, and what I'm doing is nothing. I'm doing nothing. I'm sitting here watching it. If we pull back, maybe I'll buy some more in some of my favorite companies. If we don't pull back, then I'll watch the portfolio go up. But we know this sector is undervalued. We know that we've got the market conditions behind us still. So I think uranium, just looking at the chart, looks very good. And this one down day doesn't really mean much to me, at least. So everything's still intact. Cameco, we are ascending on a pretty good pace here. We went from $10 all the way to $21. We do have a wedge pattern here. So it is possible for this thing to break to the downside, because usually when you have an ascending wedge like this, there is the possibility that this thing pulls back some. Am I calling a pullback? Not necessarily. We just need to see and monitor this. If we start to see this thing really start to blow out to the downside, this very well could continue to go higher. So I'm just showing you the charts and saying, well, if this thing starts to break to the downside, this could very well break to the upside as well. And last bull markets, if you look at a lot of these companies, they went basically up without really pulling back much. So let's watch it. Let's see what it does. But it looks good. Nothing's bad yet. This is Uranium Royalty Corp. I drew in this line here. If you draw it in using these points here, you could say that we're trying to maintain this line here. When looking at the chart, I look for bearish engulfings, large down candlesticks. It doesn't look bad, but we do have these two large down days here and then these small little pull up here. We could break down through this line and pull back some. How far? Not exactly sure. If we pull back, we could come down to like in this area in here, 240, 250-ish area. We'll have to see what it does. Here's GobiEx uranium. I threw a channel in here because this thing's like, it's changing quite a bit. Coming on back. We're bouncing back and forth between, I think, this channel. There's a lot of sellers up here. It seems like every time we hit this area, it gets sold off. And we've tried it many times. We get up here again and we're getting sold off. We could pull back here. We have a bearish engulfing. We could pull back a little bit before trying to move on up. But we're still in the channel. We've got good support down here at 21 cents. So if we were to pull back to 21 cents, I would probably be a buyer down there if it were me. Here's Bannerman. Bannerman resources. Remember, I did this at 1:34 p.m. So we'll see if all these charts are still up to date like this. But we've got a line going across for support. Came up, back tested a little bit, and we're going sideways here. A little bit of a bearish engulfing. We could go down a day or two, but still, we broke this trend line resistance part, I still think the path of least resistance is higher on the medium term. Here's Forceless metals. The trend line's holding as far as I can tell, but we got to monitor it and see if this thing continues to go higher, or if we break through and break down. We do have a bearish engulfing here, which usually means that we're going to have a pullback. We did pull back, and we did bounce off this trend line. The trend line held, and it's still holding, so things still look good. Deep yellow. This looks pretty, I'd say pretty good. This looks like a solid chart. You draw it across, came up, pulled back. There's some sellers up there. Pull back up, pull back to the trend line or resistance support line. And we'll see what it does tomorrow. It's going to go higher? I think so. Higher or sideways. Denison Mines, I drew this as a channel because it looks like we're coming up and hitting some resistance up here. We've got some sellers up here, like in some of the other stocks. Every time we come up here, it sells off, sell off, sell off, sell off. We got a bearish engulfing here. We could come down a little bit and then try to attack that top channel again. I don't want to get stuck in channel land forever, like gold and silver and some of those companies. Energy fuels, we've got this pattern. It broke to the upside. Now we're trying to break this area up here. So it's got some sellers, but it looks good. We've got big up days with two little small down days. I think we're going to move to the upside soon. URG, again, resistance line, broke up, played with it a little bit, and we're still moving, chopping sideways. Doesn't look too bad. Paladin Energy, a little bit of a bearish piercing. Usually that means we want to pull back a little bit. It looks like there's some sellers up here. You can see we get up here and it fights resistance all through here. So we may be chopping sideways a little bit until those sellers get out of here, or we overpower the sellers. Here's Centrus Energy Corporation, continuing to move sideways. I'm just looking for bearish items or bullish items. There's one bullish engulfing here, pulled on up pretty nice. The bullish engulfing here, but then there's a bearish engulfing and another bearish engulfing. The buyers and sellers are basically they're fighting each other right here. So we've got support under here. We don't want to break through this support line, and we've got a battle occurring. There's a fight between the buyers and the sellers happening right now, and it's been moving sideways. Could be almost a dead period, but I want to see it contract. What I'd like to see, and what would be even better, is these big up days and then the small little down days is what I'd prefer to see, like these big up days with small down days. The down days are a little bit bigger in some of these areas. It's not horrible, but there's a battle going on between the buyers and the sellers. Lightbridge, downtrend break, big up move, a little bit of volume spiked, just a teeny bit, and then we got small down days. So the buyers are still in control. We had a down day today, and this thing was posting a 4% up day. I think it looks good. Encore Energy, draw the upward sloping channel or an ascending channel, and we're in that channel. I mean, it still looks pretty good. I don't see. It looks like it's a controlled move higher, which is these are very strong stocks, almost like a global atomic. Here's Boss Energy. I know some people talking about Boss Energy. We're putting in this guy. We need to, if it breaks this 0.165, so it needs to break through. There's a bunch of sellers up here. That's why every time it comes up here, it gets sold off. Comes up here, gets sold off. Comes up here, gets sold off. Gets sold off. The volume's kicking up. So I think it looks good. We see higher lows all through here. That's what this bottom trend line means. Higher low, higher low, higher low. We've got the resistance line here in this pattern. The sellers are strong at that line. Eventually, I think the buyers will overtake them, and this thing could explode higher from this base. So, Boss Energy, from a technical perspective, I think looks good. Purepoint Uranium, I threw an ascending channel in here. It's just bouncing all around, all violently and volatilely. I'm not doing anything with it. And if you guys want to be aggressive, if this thing kind of comes down and starts to come back up, not a bad spot to look. Sky Harbour, We broke this pattern here to the upside, came up and hit our head right where all these sellers are at before. And when you go to try to break new highs, there's usually sellers there because that's why it turned to make that high in the first place. So we come up, usually we create a pattern that's flat like this, and you get like a triangle pattern. We may come up and then bounce back and then come back up again and try breaking it out, try breaking out. We could turn and break right out tomorrow, maybe. It all depends what the buyers want to do and what the sellers want to do. But here's the setup. Everything looks good. It looks like it's setting up to try to break this 47-cent area. CanAlaska, this guy is playing with its lower trend line. You could see a nice move higher back into it. Difficult to say if this would be a good buy point. There's a couple of good things I see in this chart. Just looking back here, we've got large, big up days and the small down days. Big up days, small down days. Big up day, small pullback. Big up day, small pullback. So that means usually that the buyers are in control. This thing's at the lower end of its trend line. If you're a robot, I'd probably say that I would add here, if it were me. And definitely if it were going into strength. Like if we saw a little bit of a down day and it reversed and put like a hammer looks something like a wick on the bottom, like this guy's a hammer here. But if it's an up day, that'd be a nice one. Like the hammer, buy it at 45 cents and then comes back up. Or buy it when it's coming back up at 47, 49 cents or something. Just to ensure that we've got some buyers down there. But usually there is with the trend line here. That's why it's basically compressing up against it. We've got the buyers starting to equal the sellers here. But the sellers are winning because we're still in a downtrend. I just like to see the buyers come in and push it back into this channel. Here's standard uranium. We're in a channel here. We do have some buyers and sellers. They're fighting each other right here. Back and forth, back and forth. But they are doing drilling this summer. It does have me, I own a little bit. And hopefully this thing either continues sideways or moves higher. So that looks all right. Laramide Resources, the upward channel here. Boom, boom. This looks like a battleground going all through here. We've got big down days, big up days, reversing, bullish engulfings, bearish engulfings. It's got all sorts of stuff all through here. And I bought some at the bottom of this channel in Laramide, and this guy could continue to head higher. Actually, yeah, is it Laramide that I bought right here? Maybe I bought it back here. I actually got it on this day in the portfolio right there with this hammer. But yeah, this one looks good. It looks like it's ready to go up. We've got the bullish engulfing, especially we had an up day when everything else had down days. That's showing strength. Find or baseload. Put in this big pattern. We're right there playing with the upper pattern. I think we're going to break to the upside. Lots of momentum coming through here. We had if this ended either up or zero, that is positive when the entire market is down. So that's actually showing strength. So that looks pretty good. Corp Uranium, small uranium company. I think it might have ended at zero or it was moving around. But here's the pattern. You can draw this pattern in here. I think that if you hit like 0.06, you might get some support from down here. So 0.05 to 0.06 for AAZ. It may head down that low. You might be able to move this down a little bit lower. But 6 cents to 5 cents, there's some buyers and sellers in here. I bet you're going to find support down there. And this chart, as long as uranium goes up, doesn't look too bad. It looks pretty good. Here's UEX CF, another company that I own. Putting in a little pattern here. I think we might break to the upside. It's showing strength on a down day. The chart looks pretty strong here. Big up days, small pullbacks. Looks pretty good. Here's Appiah Energy, kind of I think it's trading more like a rare earth metal than an actual uranium company. But Appiah Energy Corp, you put the sideways resistance line in this pattern here. It squeezed on up, broke to the upside. We may pull back to back test, and then we may head higher. And here is MP Materials, a rare earth metal company. I just want to chart this thing out. It was coming on down, bullish, kind of bullish piercing almost. Another kind of this looks pretty good down here with all these up days. It popped higher, and I think it broke through this downtrend line, and we're kind of back testing it or sitting here. Not a bad spot. Not a bad spot. It's an American rare earth company. So that's what I've got for uranium. I think the charts still look good. Let's see if they hold their trend lines. That's really the question, right? And even if they don't, I'm not selling. So if we get a larger pullback in here, because the price of uranium hasn't moved up, and some of these guys have moved up quite substantially. So even if we do pull back, I'm not selling my stuff. I'm looking for more. I'll accumulate more if we do get a pullback, especially if it's a violent, fast one. If it kind of sells off and dips real quick, I'm going to buy it back into strength. If we were to do that, I'm not projecting that. That's a huge if. I'm not saying we're doing that. I need to see what the charts are going to tell us. And right now, we've got some breaking out to the upside, and some are still in patterns, and some are flirting with the bottom trend lines of their patterns. So there's no trend line real breaks outside of a few companies to the downside. If you guys like this content, give me a thumbs up. Appreciate you guys listening. Leave comments if you have any. And thank you for listening. This is Finding Value.